there's a comfortability in staying in the ambiguity and being confused rather than seeking the clarity. There's a bravery that comes with that. I'm not sure that our skills have fine-tuned themselves enough to seek out that clarity, to approach those conversations directly, to advocate for ourselves.
Welcome to Project Loving Myself, the podcast where we dive deep into the messy, beautiful journey of self-discovery, self-love, and healing.
Welcome back to Project Loving Myself, where we talk about loving yourself through all the messy moments in life. And one aspect of our lives that is particularly messy and very confusing can be modern dating. You meet someone, it feels promising, and then something changes. You're left overthinking, reading into messages, trying to figure out where you stand. After a while, the question starts to creep in. Am I doing something wrong? But what if you're not? What if dating itself has changed and no one really showed you how to handle it without losing yourself? Joining me today is Dr. John Deoka, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner and relationship expert who helps people make sense of how we connect, communicate, and date in today's world. His work brings clarity to what so many people are feeling but can't quite explain. John, I'm really glad we're going to have this conversation. Welcome to Project Loving Myself.
Thank you so much. And we can't have this conversation enough. So excited to be here.
Thank you. And, this is a little bit of a different perspective, which is why I'm really looking forward to digging in.
Sure, let's do it.
All right. So let's start with this, John. What has changed in dating that makes it so much harder today than it was before?
So I don't know how much before we want to go, but so one thing I think to point out is the consumerism that's available to us. So if we think about, the olden days where, you might meet someone at some kind of establishment, there was a number exchange. What did that process look like compared to today? Because you might have had to wait for the phone call on the answering machine. It could have been days have gone by before you actually even got that person on the phone. Mm-hmm. Here we are today. You exchange numbers, and if someone doesn't text back within an hour, we're worried about if we're getting ghosted or not. So things have shifted. There's a lot more options. There's a lot more access. So the more options and opportunities that come with us also comes excitement, anxieties, frustrations, confusion. So we open the floodgates. Yeah. And now we kind of have to manage through that.
And do you think the fact that there's so many more choices today than before, does that kind of make it so much harder for us to know what we want? Is clarity an issue? What are you seeing in the work you do? Like, what would be the biggest challenge for people?
Well, there's so many things. And I'll start with this. So I think what I'm really seeing is a pull away from self. And what I mean by that is we're really focused on the external world. That is what defines us. That determines everything we're going towards. And when I say this external focus, like, when do we have the time to sit quietly, reflect, think about what we want? There's so much noise out there now. There's so much distraction. Our phones are in our hands. Everything is available to tell us what we want. There's so much immediate access to things. So it's kind of taking us away from that time to kind of be with ourselves and figure these things out when we had a lot more quieter time before.
Yeah.
Couple that with now we have more options. So people are a swipe away. If you wanted a date by tonight, there's a high chance that you can make that happen for yourself potentially. So now with this mass media, all these opportunities, then I mentioned, the consumerism. Can we really fulfill ourselves, or are we sometimes looking for the next best thing? There's another shift too. And I might go on for endless time about this, but then we're also turning away from connection. So like some of our connections are superficial. Some of us are having relationships across text. And it leaves me to wonder too, like, are we able to have difficult conversations? Are we really truly experiencing intimacy with another person? Because then if we are not, or we're uncomfortable around these things, when we find someone that's suitable and things get tough, are we going to leave and move on to the next person because we don't like the way that feels, and we just like the butterflies, and we like the freshness, and we like the new and the excitement? So that's just a bunch of things that's going on, but there's probably so much more that I'm not even thinking of.
Okay. Well, let's talk about healthy connection because you mentioned connection. How can someone tell the difference between a connection that's healthy, that's building over time, versus something that is completely misaligned or unavailable or is, not what they want? How does a person get that clarity?
I think it really depends, right? So I think there's a bunch of different unhealthy connections that we could be in. Ultimately, I think it is a series of tests of, how do I communicate with this person? How do our values align? How do I feel in moments of conflict with this person? When we do have conflict and there's a rupture between that person and I, how do we repair that rupture? Um, am I scared to express needs to this person? Do I feel safe to reveal or slowly reveal parts of me over time?
Yeah.
These are the healthy signals versus sometimes I think we think just time equates to this. And there's people that have been in relationships for decades that do not have this.
And I think there's a lot of confusion, John, right? And I almost think like confusion is the norm today. The ambiguity is normal. People are in relationships where there are mixed signals, there's inconsistency. You've got situations like situationship, right? So you have all these in between, situations that are popping up, even in relationships where people are committed to each other. There's still inconsistency and mixed signals. And I feel like in today's world, a lot of people think this is just how it is. So, why has this become the norm? Why is it okay for this to be happening in relationships? And why isn't anyone calling this out? And perhaps, that's why someone like you, it's so important to hear your voice and your thoughts on this.
Yeah, and I think this is where those moments of reflection come in, because anytime I hear somebody telling me, and this is even outside of the work setting, this could be in my interpersonal relationships, like this is the trend or this is what they think, it always invites me to challenge that. Because there's a self-creation part of this where I invite people to really take some time to go inside, because you start to notice you kind of are buying into some of these trends and phenomenons that you're seeing.
Mhm.
So what you mentioned about the confusion, one thing I notice is there's an avoidance or there's a apprehension when it comes to direct conversations.
Yeah.
So I think there's a comfortability in staying in the ambiguity and being confused rather than seeking the clarity. There's a bravery that comes with that. And I'm not sure that our skills have fine-tuned themselves enough to seek out that clarity, to approach those conversations directly, to advocate for ourselves, perhaps in certain situations. So I think there's a mix depending on, what kind of situations people are seeking out, depending on what kind of connections they find themselves in.
Now, I hear a lot of people say things like they're putting all this effort, but they're not getting what they want in return. And so that can lead to obviously a lot of rejection, disappointment. What are your thoughts about that? Why is it in today's dating world, our efforts don't always get us to the results we want?
Well, I would question the effort. So I was working with a client recently who is in the early stages of dating someone off an app and was spending a lot of effort in terms of the thinking, the perseverating, the strategy behind just the text exchange. And when that's going on, that is a lot of mental effort.
Yeah.
But you almost need to assign this kind of mental energy almost like to I equate it to like almost like a bank account, where it's like, what am I putting out that's like going nowhere towards this person, and what am I putting out that's actually in connection? So for example, if I was dating someone, the actual effort is in me communicating with that person via text and exchanging all the thoughts about that person outside of that, all the conversations to my friends, to my therapist, that's all the mental energy.
Yeah.
So kind of keeping stock, that could be the perception of you're doing more than what you're getting in this case. But
Right.
then there's sometimes of us where we're giving more of ourselves as well.
So what you're saying, I just want to kind of summarize what you're saying is we think we're putting a lot of effort into the relationship or into dating, but what we're putting a lot of our energy into is all the stress, all the overthinking, all the overanalyzing. It's all the stuff that maybe is not really gonna determine what happens in that relationship. What really matters is how we communicate and what we actually do.
Exactly. It may feel like effort, but when you think about what's actually transpiring between you and partner,
Yeah.
if someone was to actually sit there and measure, I wonder, would it be, if there was a scorekeeper, what would be the actual reciprocal elements of who's keeping what and when?
Yeah. And how does one kind of avoid that almost unnecessary expenditure of energy on things that might actually have nothing to do with what will actually happen in the relationship? How do we avoid doing that? How do we kind of not take all this energy in talking about a situation that we may not necessarily have control over, or conjecturing about a situation or what could or could not happen? Because I know a lot of women do that, is they spend a lot of time and energy talking about what could happen, what the other person might be thinking, why they're thinking that, should they do this? And it just feels like, again, a lot of energy that isn't really going anywhere.
Yeah. And that's why, where we put our focus is pivotal. And it's almost like a restructuring of how we want to give our attention, because I'm putting all these thoughts out to really nowhere about this connection when I could be putting this into the actual exchange with the partner. So, for example, if I'm wondering about several things about this individual, if I'm getting to know them,
Yeah.
this is an opportunity to engage in the conversation, ask questions, tell about experiences. A friend of mine today was asking me about, oh, how do I get this guy? We haven't spoken since yesterday. Do I just say good afternoon? And we had a crazy situation happen between the two of us today. And I said, why would you say good afternoon? That's boring. Say, you'll never believe what happened to me and my friend today this afternoon. Pull them into your life. Share the part of you, because this is what we're doing when we're building connection. And this is what connects us. It pulls people towards us versus like, let me just say good afternoon. Let me think about what to say. Let me talk about what to say with my friend. Invite them into your own experience, especially, as we get older, we establish ourselves, we have our own lives. We should really be thinking about the people that we're interested in and how we can invite them into our experience and start looking at spending that energy that way.
And do you think people just don't know how to do this because we haven't been taught? Or is it that we're afraid to actually invite people in, that we're afraid to connect and let people see who we really are? What do you think, in your opinion, is the bigger problem?
I think it's a mix of both. Well, how I want to answer this question is that, I think we're so accustomed to a certain way of thinking, but I think the more we challenge our perspective and create expansion within our minds, we could look at things differently, right?
Yeah.
So we could see that, oh, I may have been approaching things in this neurotic fashion when I could just be adjusting my approach so simply like this. Or I could need some self-reflection, and I could be have some fears regarding vulnerability, and I'm actually scared to bring someone that close into my life. So there's so many different ways to approach this, but I think the ultimate one that brings success is how can I take the way I'm thinking and stretch it? Because that brings the most success in how we improve in our ability to relate to others. Because
Yeah.
we're all so complex. And if we just stick to that same narrow-minded approach, it doesn't really get us anywhere.
I think that's such a great point, John, because I think there is self-doubt, there is confusion for most people in the dating space. And just this thumb rule, all right, don't try to figure out what the right way to do it, what the right way is to do it, but perhaps just stretch yourself a little bit. Like that is something we can all do, is ask ourselves, how can we just stretch a little bit? How do we get out of our comfort zone or do it a little bit differently? I think this is a really great tip because it isn't confusing, right? It's pretty simple to figure out how to stretch. Can you give us some ideas though on what that could look like? What maybe your clients have had to do to stretch themselves?
Yeah, I really think it's on what's the goal, right? So if the goal is I'm trying to meet somebody new, I haven't been in a relationship in a while, it's how do I make myself more open? Because some people are so accustomed to their routine where, they might go to work, they might go order their favorite takeout, and they might sit in the house. So it could be as simple as maybe I get dressed up every day and I have the mental approach that I could meet somebody new. Very simple stretch, and we're not doing much. Simple as that. Then we could start incrementally going, maybe I put myself in new areas. So like maybe I'm not into apps because everyone's scared of the apps now. So maybe I want to, on a Thursday, sit at the bar and have a drink. And my goal is to enjoy this drink for myself for the hour and be open to see who may approach me at the bar without making it, a guy needs to meet me at this bar right now.
Right.
Maybe it could be, historically, I've always liked the man to pursue me and ask me on the first date. I'm talking to this guy and we have a great rapport so far. I'm going to make the first move and ask him to have a drink with me.
Yeah.
So there's so many different ways that we could lightly stretch ourselves out.
Yeah, switch it up, do things a little differently. And I like the idea of not necessarily being attached to the outcome or the goal, but simply inviting the possibility into your life. Like if somebody wants to come and, sit by you at the bar, great. You're open to that. So I love that,
With the inner knowing that it will happen for you. You just don't know how. So be like, I'm not going to be single for long. So I'm going to put myself in these opportunities knowing that it's going to stick eventually.
Yeah, I love that. Now, you mentioned a little bit about how people don't like the dating apps. A lot of people don't like the dating apps. What do you think the dating apps have done to modern dating? Like how have they impacted the way we connect, commit, and even show up emotionally? What have you seen?
What I'll start with is what I like about the dating apps.
Okay, fair.
What I like about the dating apps is you get a preview. It's like a trailer. So whatever the app is. So let's say we have some photos, we have a profile, maybe we have some lines, then you connect, you have some conversations, you have the ability to either exchange numbers, do a FaceTime. So there's a lot of pre-work you could do before you have to even leave your house and get out there.
Mhm.
So I could have a couple exchanges, get on a FaceTime and know I'm interested in this person before I even sit down in public. And that's really convenient. But with that convenience, there's a cost because there's a lot of people to sift through and we don't know everyone's intentions on there. So we have some people that are looking for relationships, some people that are looking for sex, some people that are in relationships looking for attention, some people that are just looking for attention, some people that don't know, have no idea what they want, some people that are predators. We have some like this a variety of the whole gamut of things on there. So that's what is the scary part. And then there's a lot of misled opportunities when we could be matching. Those conversations don't go anywhere. People get distracted. But what we forget, if we just take the pool of the people that are there for the right reasons, someone could match with you tomorrow and match with the other person that day, be talking to the same two people, ask one for the date on Wednesday, they hit it off, and then that's why they stop talking to you. So if it's so excessive, it's almost like, are you going to formally tell every person what happened with you on the app?
Yeah. Now, if your love life is completely stressing you out, and if you want to understand your patterns in love more deeply, take my Love Blocks quiz. You'll find the link in the show notes, or go to sanayagurnamal.com/love blocks quiz. So that's the unfortunate downside is, people are going to feel like they've been ghosted, they've been rejected, and that's going to end up leading to overthinking, second guessing, feeling anxious for some people. So there are many positives, but on the other hand, it creates a lot of situations where people have to figure things out without proper communication or explanation for why, the communication ends. So how do people deal with that? And from a psychological perspective, what does that do to us?
Well, first, being ghosted isn't something new. I feel like we've made it new amongst this like technology era, but like people have broken up and not gotten reasons before. So it's just happening more frequently now. And it does really suck. So what you do is you really honor your emotions on how bad it is with yourself. And if you're sad about it, you allow yourself the permission to be sad about it. What we try not to do is start getting cynical and start getting angry towards others and look to protect. Because in this app world, it's probably par for the course. What I would challenge a lot of the listeners to do is, if this is a big sore spot for you, to do some deep soul searching and see how many of you have ghosted, because the data shows it's pretty equal. And you've been on the sending end of the ghosting. So if that's the case, then you should know and be able to relate to both sides that like it's probably just as hard to let somebody down as well.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's an excusable behavior. We can't avoid these things though. And it shouldn't stop you from finding what you want.
It shouldn't. And yet a lot of people do feel exhausted by dating right now. Would you call that emotional burnout? What would you call that? And how can they deal with that in a better way?
There is a burnout that's happening in the dating scene. So I'm going to pick up my phone, especially with the apps, and I'm swiping right now. This is a lot of energy. A lot on top of the TikToking, the Instagramming. Put the phone down. Put this phone down. If you feel exhausted from your dating life, put the phone down is going to be one. 2, explore other avenues of dating. Make sure the other facets of your life are full. Are you seeing your friends? Do we feel fulfilled at work? Are our family relationships intact? Have we tried the restaurants we want to do? Have we taken that trip? Make sure we're full all around, not just, hopelessly in the dating market. If all that is sound and we still feel exhausted from dating, then it might be some time to take a break, especially if it's from the apps. But it also depends on the method, right? So if it was just from the apps, then we could start some of these other things. Ask a friend to set us up, sit at the bar, do a speed dating service, approach someone at a supermarket. Like, you never know. So
like more organically.
Look at other avenues. And if it's, I don't approach men or I don't do that, then that you are the person that needs to probably pursue one of those opportunities more. Because with risk comes reward, and we don't want to put ourselves in boxes. It doesn't create expansion like what we were just talking about.
Absolutely. So how do we stay open to love without becoming emotionally drained or disconnected from ourselves?
We need to really understand love. I don't know if we always do. We need to really take some time and understand what it is we seek at relationships. Are we looking for partnerships? Are we looking for power? What do these relationships bring to us? What do we have to offer to relationships? Sometimes when these are draining, it's because we've accessorized them and we haven't gotten our accessory. So it's almost become this conquest.
Yeah.
And then you get it, and then you don't really want it anyway. And then it's almost like a void.
Yeah.
So we want something that's going to really, make us happy overall. So if we have this better understanding of love and what that means for us, what we could add to it, what the values are around that, we should be able to prevent a good portion of that happening.
Yeah.
But of course, there's experiences that are going to be thrown our way that we may not know might be preparing us for something down the road.
Yeah. I love that.
So learning what the value is and whatever that experience was, because that's part of life. Like life is beauty, pain, comfort, discomfort, pleasure. It's all of it.
And I think that range of emotions and experiences is something we don't really fully recognize. I think everyone goes out there and they think that they should be on the apps and they should find what they want. And when it doesn't happen as quickly or in the way that they want it to, it can be very, very disappointing for someone who is experiencing something like that. They think they're doing all the right things, but they're not getting the kind of love that they want. What do they need to understand about this journey?
Yeah, and also making sure that the journey is at the right timing for you.
Okay.
There's a lot of pressures out there in the world. So those of us that are coming of age and we may feel like we're doing all the right things and we may be misaligned because we're contorting ourselves to pressures, and maybe now's the time for us to focus on other things, and we're trying to please others in terms of maybe it's time to get married. So some of this interferes along the way, or sometimes, we're out of a relationship that was long and lengthy and we feel like we need to replace it.
Yeah.
So we want to be mindful of some of these things and like why we're putting so much importance on it, that it's becoming like a prize when it's a person. These are people.
And so that is something that I think is very real, that people sometimes get more focused on the conquest than what they really want. Any tips that you can share, John, for getting people more grounded into what they want, into the experience, rather than, the chasing or the pressure or the end result that they feel they should have?
Yeah, because I think it's very easy to say, I want to be married by this age, or I want to be married. And you could get married. And if you got married and you didn't know what that really gratifying, nourishing relationship looked like beforehand, it's not going to be a great marriage, and you're going to be going to sleep miserable.
Yeah.
So that's my warning at that time. So now what can we do? What we can do is now, if we're single, instead of all the energy we're wasting or all the time we're spending being down on ourselves, we could use this as an opportunity, because now we're in the preparation stage.
Okay.
So we could take the time to imagine, what is the best relationship for me? Write down, what do I want to feel? What is a day like? What is a week like? What do I imagine a year like with this person? What qualities do I want? Do I want not just the physical attributes? What do I want monetary? What do I want in terms of features? Like, how do I want them to make me feel if I came home and I got fired from my job?
Yeah.
All these moments that come up in life, you could think about and imagine what a partner, would do. And then that's how you could really mold the identity of your person. So then when you're dating, you're also going to know, once you're really grounded in that, is this person it or they're not it?
You're talking a lot about knowing yourself
Mhm.
as being really important. What can a person do to cultivate that relationship with themselves?
Some of us it comes natural for, some of us it doesn't, right? If it doesn't come natural for, like, how do you carve out the time? Like, how do you build out the time, right? So it's going to seem awkward at first, but like, do you schedule it in your phone an hour of me time? And what does that me time look like? Sometimes we're trying to make it more self-care, skincare, things like that. But it could be, I'm going to lay in the bed and I'm going to reflect on how my would be with my partner for this hour. That's me time.
Mm.
I want to sit here and journal about all the ways my ex mistreated me, potentially, because I'm angry today. I'm feeling angry and alone. So I'm going to journal about it. And I'm going to say, I want to know how badly I was mistreated. So I know I'm not going to deal with this again in the next relationship. Our emotions, they're signals. So sometimes when we're feeling things and we don't know where they're from, it's that opportunity for us to use these. And especially if we have the goal of being with someone or finding with someone, these moments of sadness that are coming up that we may not know what they're tied to could be inviting us to create something larger down the road in our love lives.
I love that. I love how you put that. John, this has been a very soul-searching conversation. You've dropped a lot of very interesting questions to ask ourselves and things that we could be doing that I think when we get lost in the dating world, we forget about that. Now, what I normally do with my guests is I ask them for a project loving myself message or mantra that they'd like to share with our listeners, something that you feel helps them stay more connected to themselves or to love themselves, maybe something that you have used or followed in your own life.
Well, I would like to pull the listeners out of the victim mindset. So my mantra would be, in relationships, there is no victims, just two willing participants. And of course, this is not if you're in abusive relationships. So
Right.
I don't want us to contort this, but in this case, there's two willing participants.
And I think what that is charged with, or what that is loaded with, is your choice, right? You always have a choice because you are two willing people and you get to choose how you show up. So I love the power in that statement. John, thank you for being with us on Project Loving Myself. If people want to learn a little bit more about your work, get in touch, and I believe you have a free gift, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So you could go to my website at therelationshipprescriber.com. There you could sign up to my email list for a free gift. And then you could also follow me on my Instagram at Dr.Dr._John Dioka. That's my Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm not active on there, so I'm not going to even give that, but be on the lookout as I start creating content on there, and a Substack's coming shortly, so be on the lookout for that as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
If dating has felt confusing lately, you're not doing it wrong. If you've been overthinking, feeling drained, or leaving dates more confused than clear, well, that makes sense. Dating has changed. But no matter how much dating has changed, this part stays the same. You still need to be yourself. You still need to connect with yourself. As Esther Perel said, the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. And that includes the relationship you have with yourself. Now, if your love life is completely stressing you out, and if you want to understand your patterns in love more deeply, take my Love Blocks quiz. You'll find the link in the show notes, or go to sanayagurnamal.com/loveblocks-quiz. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Follow Project Loving Myself and connect with me at Sanaya Gurnamal. drop me a DM on Instagram, or watch my videos on YouTube. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, you are loved.